Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Hamza Rifat and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the international community must ensure that the security situation in Afghanistan is stabilized. He was speaking to Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Albaraz, who called on him in Islamabad. The Foreign Minister lauded Pakistan's efforts to facilitate evacuations from Kabul. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says the international support and humanitarian aid is imperative for lasting peace in Afghanistan. He was addressing a Corps Commanders Conference at the General Headquarters that also reviews regional and internal security situations. He said external and internal forces inimical to peace and stability in Pakistan shall be thwarted at all costs. The military's media wing said the forum reaffirms Pakistan's commitment to peace and expressed solidarity with Kashmiris braving Indian atrocities. Lebanese President Michel Aoun and Prime Minister Najib Mikati have signed a decree forming a new government. The country had been without a government for over a year as it descended further into economic meltdown. The African Union has suspended Guinea's membership in the bloc after a military coup last weekend. This country was expelled from the Economic Community of West African States on Thursday. The news in detail after a short break. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the international community must ensure that the security situation in Afghanistan is stabilized. He was speaking to Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Albaraz, who called on him in Islamabad. The Foreign Minister lauded Pakistan's efforts to facilitate evacuations from Kabul. The Prime Minister urged the world to address the humanitarian needs of the Afghan people and to ensure economic stability of the country. Earlier, Albaraz also met with his Pakistani counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi. The Foreign Minister's visit marks the 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says the international support and humanitarian aid is imperative for lasting peace in Afghanistan. He was addressing a Corps Commanders Conference at the General Headquarters that also reviews regional and internal security situations. He said external and internal forces inimical to peace and stability in Pakistan shall be thwarted at all costs. The military's media wing said the forum reaffirms Pakistan's commitment to peace and expressed solidarity with Kashmiris braving Indian atrocities. It also paid glowing tribute to veteran Kashmiri leader Sayyid Ali Gilani, who was denied a public funeral by Indian authorities. During the meeting, the Army Chief expressed satisfaction over border security measures amid a crisis situation in the region, particularly Afghanistan. The United Nations has warned that the freezing of billions of dollars in Afghan assets will inevitably spark a severe downturn. UN Special Envoy Deborah Lyons stressed the need to find a way to get money flowing to Afghanistan to prevent a total breakdown. This report has more details.
Still met to discuss the economic situation in Afghanistan. UN envoy in Afghanistan, Lyons, argued allowing the economy to breathe for a few months will give the Taliban a chance to demonstrate flexibility. The U.S. senior diplomat Jeffrey De Laurentiis said the Taliban seek international help, but Washington's stance is clear that any legitimacy will have to be earned. While China said these assets belong to Afghanistan and should not be used as leverage for threats or restraints. Beijing's Deputy UN Ambassador Zheng Shuwang also chided what he called failed foreign model in Afghanistan.
What relevant countries have done in Afghanistan in the past 20 years has ended in failure. They should seriously reflect on it and correct mistakes in a timely manner, rather than walking away from the problems of their own doing and leaving them to Afghanistan and other countries in the region.
Much of the Afghan central bank's $10 billion in assets are parked overseas. The U.S. Treasury Department says it is not easing Taliban sanctions or loosening curbs on the group's access to global financial system. The International Monetary Fund also blocked the Taliban from accessing some $440 million in new emergency reserves.
The BRICS members have urged the need to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a staging ground for terrorism. Leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa virtually met at the 13th summit. They emphasized fostering an inclusive intra-Afghan dialogue to ensure peace, stability, and order in the country. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping called on the BRICS countries to embrace changes of the current times. He also stressed keeping abreast of the times and advancing cooperation, while Russian President Vladimir Putin said the authority of the bloc is growing and its role in international affairs is increasing. On Afghanistan, Putin said it is still not entirely clear how all the situation will affect the regional and global security situation. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned of a worst-case possibility of an all-out war with Russia. He made these remarks at the Yalta European Strategy Summit. Zelensky said he wants to have a substantive meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. He also said the relations with the U.S. are better than before. But he cautioned that Ukraine has not received a clear position from the U.S. on whether it could join the NATO military alliance. Meanwhile, Russian energy giant Gazprom said it has finished construction of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Germany. The pipeline will double Russia's gas exporting capacity to Europe through the Baltic Sea. Earlier, Russia said pumping commercial gas supplies via Nord Stream 2 will not start until a German regulator gives the green light. The presidents of the United States and China have discussed the need to ensure that competition between the two powers does not become a conflict. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping held their first call in 7 months. The White House says the two sides had a broad strategic discussion, including where their interests converge. In a statement, it said Biden underscored American interest in peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and across the globe, while Beijing said President Xi told Biden that the U.S. policy on China imposes great difficulties on bilateral relations. Chinese state media said both sides agreed to maintain frequent contact and to ask working-level teams to increase communications. It quoted the president as saying that China and the U.S. should push ties back to the right track of stable development as soon as possible. Now, Russia has warned America against deploying weapons to space, saying it will have to bear the consequences for doing so. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov accused Washington and its allies of undermining global security. He said such political attempts are aimed at restricting Russia's influence at the international stage. In an interview, he said Russia has pledged that it won't be the first to deploy weapons to space. He noted Russia and China have been calling for using political and diplomatic means to prevent an arms race into space. Staying with Russia, Russia and Belarus have agreed on tighter coordination in economic policy. President Vladimir Putin says an economic foundation must be laid before furthering the political track. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko met with Putin in Moscow. Russian President pledged to lend around $640 million to Minsk by the end of 2022. Putin also announced bilateral agreements on macroeconomic policies and common tax and customs measures. Meanwhile, Lukashenko said that if necessary, both countries may also integrate in political and military dimensions. The two also agreed to incorporate the energy markets as Moscow maintains steeply discounted supplies of natural gas to Minsk. They also agreed to set up a unified gas and oil market. News from the Middle East now. Lebanon's President Michel Aoun and Prime Minister Najib Mikati have signed a decree forming a new government. Mikati will lead the cabinet. The country had been without a government for over a year as it descended further into economic meltdown. The World Bank has described the country's financial woes as one of the deepest depressions in modern history. The crisis has propelled 78% of the population into poverty. More news after a short break. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. Now for some more news stories. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned the ongoing crackdown against Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. In a statement, it also reaffirmed its support for Palestinians' right to freedom and dignity. This comes as massive rallies have taken place across the occupied West Bank against the inhumane treatment of Palestinian inmates. The occupation authorities have cancelled family visits for Palestinian inmates following the escape of 6 prisoners from the Gilboa prison. News from Africa now. The African Union has suspended Guinea's membership in the bloc after a military coup last weekend. This country was expelled from the Economic Community of West African States on Thursday. The move comes amid fears of a deterioration of democracy in West African countries and drawing parallels with recent coups in Mali. The bloc called on Guinea to return to normal constitutional order after President Alpha Conde was deposed by special forces. In India, a viral fever outbreak has infected thousands and left more than 100 people dead in the country. After Uttar Pradesh, the state of Bihar is also experiencing an unprecedented rise in cases among children. A medic said all the beds in the pediatric wards of a hospital in the city of Darbhanga are full. The official said over 2 to 3 children are undergoing treatment on a bed. Officials noted over 150 patients are being admitted in the district hospital every day, out of which 15 are serious. According to media reports, intensive care units as well as general wards are all full. Time now for the global pandemic situation. Brazil has registered 753 daily deaths from COVID-19 and nearly 31,000 new cases. Globally, the coronavirus death toll has exceeded 4.6 million, while the caseload is over 223 million. More in this report.
As the vaccine is the key factor in the fight against coronavirus, its requirement and controversies around it are getting to grow. In the U.S., Los Angeles County school officials have ordered vaccinations for all students aged 12 and over. It has become the largest school district in the U.S. to take that dramatic step. President Joe Biden has announced sweeping new vaccine requirements affecting as many as 100 million Americans in an all-out effort to curb the surging Delta variant. He is mandating all federal employees to get the jabs.
Despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we still have nearly 80 million Americans who have failed to get the shot. And to make matters worse, there are elected officials actively working to undermine the fight against COVID-19.
In Europe, Italy's Medicines Agency has approved the use of a third dose of vaccines for the vulnerable groups of the population, while the government ruled catering and cleaning staff in schools and nursing homes can only work if they have proof of COVID-19 immunity. Britain's medical regulator has also given the go-ahead for Pfizer and AstraZeneca's vaccine to be used as booster shots. Meanwhile, in Africa, top health officials of the AU said rich nations would do better to send vaccines to Africa rather than hoarding them for booster shots. That scientific evidence has yet to conclusively back.
We are not, as a continent, very keen in any definition of vaccine diplomacy that would mean that people make statements in the media that are not really backed with reality. Pledges do not put vaccines into people's arms. I think we want real vaccines, not just pledged vaccines.
Australia's COVID-19 daily cases have topped 1,900 for the first time. An outbreak fueled by the highly infectious Delta variant continues to gain ground in lockdown Sydney and Melbourne.
The coronavirus has also claimed another 83 lives in Pakistan over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the death toll has reached 26,580. It said more than 3,600 people contracted the virus overnight. The country's caseload has exceeded 1.19 million, while over 1,079,000 have recovered. There are more than 91,000 active cases, of which nearly 540,000 are critical. The ministry says over 20 million people in Pakistan have been fully vaccinated. Now, Turkey says it has neutralized 6 terrorists of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in northern Iraq. Turkish authorities used the word neutralized to imply the terrorists in question surrendered or were killed or captured. The Defense Ministry said the counterterrorism action was part of Operation Simsek. The PENS operations are a series of offensives Turkey has been carrying out since 2019 against terrorist groups in northern Iraq. Earlier, the Interior Ministry said at least 3 armed terrorists were neutralized in Turkey's southeastern Hakkari province. The statement did not specify the terrorist affiliation, but the PKK has been active in these regions. Turkey holds the group responsible for at least 40,000 deaths during a 35-year-long conflict. Now, the United States and Mexico have resumed high-level economic talks for the first time in 4 years. Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken led the U.S. delegation in Washington, D.C. The two sides seek to find common ground on a host of issues, including climate change, workers' rights, and immigration. The dialogue will seek to pursue economic opportunities beyond the issues covered in the 2020 North American Trade Agreement. The Trump administration had abandoned the talks after accusing Mexico of sending criminal migrants to the U.S. border. Hurricane Olaf has made landfall on the Los Cabos resort region at the tip of Mexico's Baja California peninsula. Authorities have closed ports to prepare temporary shelters and urged people to monitor public announcements. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said the hurricane had maximum sustained winds of 155 kilometers per hour. The center said Olaf could strengthen more before reaching the coast. It is also expected to bring 5 to 10 inches of rain to the southern part of the peninsula, while up to 15 inches will be reported in isolated spots, creating the danger of flash floods and mudslides. And in fashion, luxury brand Carolina Herrera debuted its latest collection in Manhattan, New York, as the fashion house celebrated its 40th anniversary. More in this report.
The high-ceiling gallery of Salon 94's latest outpost was set up at a 100-year-old ballroom, as it hosted the latest collection of Herrera House. The show prominently featured elegant gowns, elaborate sleeves, and classic silhouettes. Singer Tinashe and actress Dove Cameron were among the celebrities in attendance.
I was so excited about tonight for 2 reasons. One is that it's the 40th anniversary of the amazing House of Herrera, and the second is that I've had to wait 18 months until we could do a runway show. So I was really excited and had a lot of ideas ready to make tonight special, and I wanted tonight to be the clearest articulation of my Herrera woman.
Over the last few seasons, the pandemic-induced lockdowns forced the brand designers to focus on lower key fare. But in anticipation of a post-pandemic re-emergence, they made a showcase of Herrera's trademark sense of occasion.
This season, obviously because of COVID, we did a much more intimate presentation, and that allowed us to choose a venue that was different from the normal ones we've used in the past. So we're in a historic townhouse that's now an art gallery, and for me it was really an opportunity to acknowledge where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And that is a brand that speaks to powerful, glamorous, fabulous women who recognize and appreciate the transformative power of getting dressed.
The New York Fashion Week runs through September 12, closing out with a show by American designer Tom Ford.
More news after a short break. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. A team of South Korean researchers has created the skin with a special ink that changes color based on temperature. More in this report.
Ko Sung-hyun, a mechanical engineer professor at Seoul National University, leads a team of researchers that develop the color-changing skin. The artificial camouflage technology that mimics the color-changing ability of a chameleon is controlled by tiny flexible heaters.
그 색에 대한 정보가
Information about color is sent to a microprocessor. The microprocessor has information about required temperatures needed to make certain colors. So it gives orders to heaters to make certain temperatures and create a certain shade based on that.
Sung-hyun says he took inspiration from the color-changing mechanism of chameleons to create a wearable device capable of changing its color. The total thickness of the flexible multi-layered artificial skin is less than 100 micrometers, thinner than a human hair. By adding additional silver nanowire, layers in simple shapes such as dot, lines, or squares, the skin can create complex patterns.
thermochromic liquid crystal layer.
It consists of thermochromic liquid crystal layers that can change color by temperature, and then a layer of silver nanowire heaters underneath that can adjust temperature. The 2 layers are placed on a plastic substrate. The total thickness of those 3 layers is only dozens of micrometers, so it can be bent easily.
Sung-hyun envisions his research can be adapted for military uniforms to help soldiers blend into their surroundings. It can also be used for aesthetic purposes such as for fashion, exteriors of cars and buildings, as well as for future display technology.
Time now for some commercial updates. European markets are cautiously higher, tracking global counterparts as sentiment rebounded following a rocky week. CAC 40 in Paris led the gains, rising 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX gained close to 0.5%, and FTSE in London edged more than 0.25% higher. FTSE MIB in Italy and the Pan-European Stoxx 600 both added more than 0.25% each. Time now for the weather update with Munib Hamid.
Hello, welcome to the weather forecast. Now we're going to start with Abu Dhabi, where the weather is expected to be sunny with temperatures rising to 39, while in Amsterdam, rainy weather is expected with temperatures steady at 23. Now, if we head to Ankara, there is partly sunny weather with temperatures at 27. Now, moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 17 with rain in forecast. Now, if you are traveling to Bangkok, there will be an expected thunderstorm with temperatures around 31, while in Beijing, temperatures are at 28, accompanied with a partly sunny sky. While Beirut will also experience partly sunny weather with temperatures at 31. Meanwhile, Berliners will experience temperatures at 26 degrees, accompanied with rain. Now, heading to Cairo, the sun will be out with temperatures down at 33. Down under in Canberra, the temperatures are at 20 with partly cloudy weather today. In Islamabad, temperatures are at 29 with layer of clouds floating in the sky, while in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 33, also with partly cloudy weather. And that is all for now. Back to you.
And with the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.